All right, we've got our top story. Let's talk about this. Something big is happening, and we're not being told exactly what it is. Yesterday, there was this bizarre meeting, we understand, where the head of the CIA went to the Capitol building and got together with the Gang of Eight. Now, the Gang of Eight are the top lawmakers, right? They're sort of meant to sort of rise above all of the political fray. And just when there's some sort of a crisis, when there's some sort of a big issue, they get together.
Yes.
The Gang of Eight does. So they met with the head of the CIA, and they met in a private skiff room in the basement of the Capitol yesterday. It was a really bizarre, this meeting was hastily called. According to Jake Sherman, the reporter, he's an excellent reporter from Punchbowl News. He used to be a writer for Politico. Now he's on his own with Punchbowl. But he broke this story, said Pelosi, Adam Schiff, McCarthy, and Burns, meaning Burns, the head of the CIA, are going to the skiff with Burns and the director Burns in the basement of the Capitol. Really bizarre. And then this is so the skiff room, if you're not familiar, is a sensitive compartmentalized information facility. That's what it is, which is to give them a briefing. They're giving them some kind of a briefing. We don't know what. Why won't they tell us what this is? When pressed about it, they kept quiet. What's really bizarre that as this meeting was actually unfolding yesterday, a fire alarm went off in the building, and there was a brief evacuation of the Capitol. They went back in and continued these secret meetings. So take a look at this. This was the fire alarm going off. As you can see, something was going on here in the basement. They had to be kind of shuttled out. You can see the lights flashing there, the fire alarm going off. And there was two separate meetings. There was a hastily called intelligence committee meeting yesterday, and this hastily called Gang of Eight CIA meeting in the basement of the Capitol.
Interesting that this happens one day in advance of the China-Russia meeting, right? Where the two heads of state from China and Russia are about to meet in person in Kazakhstan. Right. Today, actually.
And attacks in Kazakhstan along the border also. So what is happening here? I mean, you can also see, here's some photos from the basement of the Capitol. You can see what's going on here. We're not being told what it is. Andrew Solander says, lots of members of the House Intelligence Committee here. CIA director was here as well. And you can see them gathering in the basement for this private meeting. I have to say, what's the concern here? I mean, there are a couple of concerns floating around this evening as you're watching this show. One of them is concern over a nuclear attack by Russia. Now, let me repeat that. A nuclear attack by Russia, which they have said unequivocally that's not something that's ever on the table for them, but yet that is a concern inside of Washington. We don't know if that's what this meeting was about. We don't know. Current members of the Pentagon and former generals are saying that they're worried about Putin using nuclear weapons. Now, they've lost 6,000 square miles in Ukraine. The Western media is saying that Putin is getting desperate. So now he may use nuclear weapons. Do you believe that would lead to a nuclear strike? I mean, I'd love to hear what our viewers think about that.
Well, as Patrick Lancaster pointed out on Monday, this loss of square kilometers only represents less than 2% of the land that they have gained in Ukraine. So is that a case for despair is one question, right? The fact that Russia has said they are not interested in nuclear war, but they have said that they are interested in retaliating where decisions are made if long-range missiles reach into Russia, right? Where are decisions made? Where these dudes are right now.
Yeah, and also that's a good point. I mean, the idea that if they are going to continue to use Western weapons, they're going to continue to ramp up long-range attacks using HIMARS weapons, and other heavy weapons provided by the United States and NATO, that they would react and respond with, I think the words were like, with a fury that you've never seen before. Now, does that rise to the level of nuclear strike? Because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, again, you'd wipe the whole planet off. I mean, everyone would be destroyed. So I don't know that that's the response. They have enough other weapons to do that. Go ahead, Philip.
I would be surprised, though. I mean, honestly, like if Russia was, I almost said the USSR, like I'm living in the 80s again. If Russia was going to use nukes, I don't think Ukraine would be where they would want to use them. I mean, that is one of those weapons that if you're going to deploy it, if you're not planning on destroying the entire planet, then you better use them as far away from you as you possibly can.
Yes.
Right. But the concern is that they would use it on American soil.
Right.
Right. Because they have said we will strike where these decisions are made, which I think most of us extrapolated to mean American soil.
So let's just hope that that's not the case, right? Although we did see American warships playing war games right next to Russian warships yesterday. So again, or 2 days ago. So again, who knows what's coming, right? And there's a lot of concern around the Arctic Circle as well. What is happening in the Arctic over resources and that land grab? So we don't know. Call me skeptical, though. I mean, according to Russia's defense ministry, they are sitting right back right now, and they're not planning any major offensive. They're carrying out their attacks, but there's not any major military offensive, according to the Ministry of Defense. And as if, by the way, that they would broadcast that to the world. Like, hey, we're going to be here, 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 and here. This is where we're going to attack. So we don't know. But right now, they're continuing their operations, their special military operation, according to their defense ministry today. I don't know. Call me skeptical, but I think something else is going on. Something else is going on. Is the United States having these secret CIA meetings because they're worried about some kind of retribution from Russia? Could it have something to do with yet another one of Putin's closest allies dying yesterday? I mean, again, I'm throwing these out there. You guys let me know what you think. But yesterday, according to Russia Daily, 39-year-old Ivan Pechorin, the managing director of Putin's Far East and Arctic Development Corporation, so development and resources in the Arctic Circle, fell off the side of a boat while sailing in the waters close to Russky Island. Here he is. As we reported, by the way, 2 weeks ago, and there he is. So he's dead at 39 years old. As we reported here 2 weeks ago, Vladimir Putin's top oil advisors are all dying. Mm-hmm. Remember the last one we found dead, thrown from a window?
Of a hospital.
From the 6th floor? Like we really, no, he just jumped out of the hospital? Doesn't make any sense. Putin's inner circle, like all of the members of his inner oil sanctum, are basically dying off or being killed. Putin's main guy for exploration in the Arctic is now mysteriously dead, thrown off a boat, or he fell off a boat. One person dies, okay. 2, that's a coincidence. 8 of them? 8 of Putin's like inner oil circle of advisors, and I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So the question we raised a few weeks ago here on the show, not by us, but we were reiterating what is being thrown out there, is that who is picking these people off?
Yeah.
And you know, is it intelligence services from somewhere picking these people off? Where's it coming from? Why is this happening? 8 people killed?
Yes. All with a 0 degree direct connection.
Yes.
With Vladimir Putin. And
all related around energy and resources, the main concern right now. So I don't know. I mean, what's happening? Why are they meeting in the basement of the Capitol? If you have an idea, let us know in the comments. They're not telling us what it is. Meanwhile, Ukraine is begging for more money today, more weapons from the United States. This, according to the Wall Street Journal this morning. Ukraine wants longer range weapons. Ukraine signals major weapons request for long-term offensive against Russia. They want it to be a long-term offensive. So they want longer, higher powered heavy weapons that they can attack inside of Russia.
But now is the time to ask on this sort of high of success, right?
And isn't that convenient?
Yes.
Right? Like they launched this offensive, and now, you know, we're going to ask for all of these additional heavy weapons.
They have it both ways. When they're losing, they say they need more. When they're winning, they say they need more, right? They are appealing to both sides of the coin.
Well, I think for a lot of Western countries, it was like, well, what are we getting for all of this that we're sending there? Well, now you have it. You have this.
It's working.
You have this victory over the past few days, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, the real story about that is, because we reported here how they've been talking about, there was panic and all of these Russian soldiers were just throwing down their weapons and running. Well, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up because they're just running away, and you can't catch up to them with armored vehicles and tanks. That doesn't add up. Turns out that there were almost no troops around. It was like empty, very little Russian forces at all. So there wasn't a rout. There wasn't a destruction of these forces. They weren't running and they were catching up to them and overpowering them. They just weren't there. They were like showing up, and there was huge gaps in the line, and they weren't even there, according to military analysts. So Meanwhile, Western countries are ready to pour billions more into Ukraine, and they are giddy that NATO forces have helped Ukraine mount this counteroffensive. So do we think that Putin is going to sit back and do nothing? That's the question. Is he just going to sort of sit back on his haunches? The Financial Times is reporting this morning that the United States is preparing to send more potent weapons to Ukraine in the form of jet aircraft. So who's going to fly the jet aircraft? Ukrainian military?
Especially when we've had military analysts saying that all of Ukraine's trained military were the first to go, right? And so all they're left with are these civilian volunteers who, I don't know if I'm a civilian, if I were to volunteer for something, I can't fly a jet aircraft. I don't have that skill set.
Yeah, all right, show of hands. I know you're a pig farmer. You're a seamstress. Anybody want to fly a jet? Yeah, I'll learn. Okay, we'll get you up in a jet this afternoon. No, it's going to take years of training.
Unless you plug them into the Matrix, right?
Right. Can I fly
like
a helicopter?
Out there, rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to fly the F-35.
Yes.
Right.
So,
Is it going to crash? We don't know. But it's hilarious. If you're one of these people who, because I actually had a comment the other day in one of our videos, and someone said, you mean to tell me NATO is leading these attacks against Russian forces? I mean, that's verifiable. And they're like, what are you smoking? I'm like, Ukraine's military has been decimated. Who else is leading these attacks and strikes using HIMARS, calling in of, I've spoke to sources in the military who tell me these HIMAR, the HIMAR vehicles specifically need to be targeted using intelligence targeting for GPS locating. Like you can't just randomly operate a HIMARS without intelligence, tracking specific spots where these things are going to strike.
This is a skill set that is learned for a long time.
Yes. And coordinated. We don't just put these things in the field and just hope that Ukrainians know how to use them. No, they're being absolutely run by NATO forces. They have been for years, and they are continuing to be. And so that's who's going to be flying these jets. It'll be NATO aircraft. It'll be NATO jets. It'll be NATO pilots. It'll be U.S. forces under the pretense that these are Ukrainians flying jets. So, I mean, remember when President Biden said this would never happen? Listen.
The idea that we're going to send in offensive equipment and have planes and tanks and trains going in with American pilots and American crews, just understand, and don't kid yourself, no matter what you all say, that's called World War III. Okay? Let's get it straight here, guys. That old expression, don't kid a kidder.
Yeah, don't kid a kidder. So when we send jets into Ukraine, first of all, like you said we would never do that because that would be World War III, right? Now we are. Who's going to fly those jets? It's going to be American forces. So, I don't know. It's incredibly troubling. This is just continuing, and it's going to continue to ramp up because next week, I don't know how many of you watching right now are going to be in Austin, Texas next week. Do you have plans? Because next Monday, you have an opportunity, kicks off the massive defense weapons conference in Texas on September 19th. Among the companies on display will be Northrop Grumman, Raytheon. All the big players will be there. And if you visit their website, you'll be scrolling down. You might see this face who's going to be the keynote speaker. Actually, here you go. So armaments, robotics, munitions merged to meet the mission, the future force capabilities. This is the conference. Okay. And then if you scroll down, here we go. We scroll down on the website. Who's going to be the keynote speaker at the conference? Oh, that makes perfect sense. So if you're going into Austin, Texas to the Defense Weapons Conference, that will be your keynote speaker. Not surprising at all. I mean, who benefits more from using these weapons, right?
Well, I will point out that September 19th is the Queen's funeral, so I suppose he won't be going there.
No, I don't think
he'll be busy.
He'll be busy zooming into a Zoom call to Austin, Texas, because he doesn't leave his office, so he will be there. 8 defense contractors will be there. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics. They were all a part of this back in April to discuss how the U.S. could speed up production to help Ukraine fend off Russia's war. So they're all friends. Here's my favorite part of the website, though. This is the conference, is the ethics part of the website.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they have an ethics part of the website. I want to just read. They kill people for a living, and yet they have an ethics page.
Is it do no harm or do lots of harm?
No, let me just read this. The NDA corporate members are asked to adhere to the highest ethical standards because of who we are and what we do. It's our duty to place the greater good of the nation above our business interests and to behave in an honorable way, demonstrating respect for key principles that include honesty, fairness, equality, dignity, diversity, individual rights, and the rule of law. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, this is literally their ethics page on the rule of law. They don't adhere to the rule of law by any stretch of the imagination.
No, they don't have to.
They don't adhere to the international laws. They don't adhere to the United States laws. They don't adhere to any of it.
No, in fact, the United States doesn't even join the International Tribunal on War Crimes.
Right.
They won't even join. They sanction members.
They won't join because they will be called out.
Because they don't want to be held accountable for a laundry list of things. So, which rule of law are we discussing?
Right.
When you make up your own laws, though, it's really easy to stick to them because you can change them at any moment.
True.
Right.
This
We're
is
just like,
true.
no, we're totally following the ethics that we just created just now.
Right. The diversity one really cracks me up because of who gets bombed the most, right? There's no diversity of victimhood at all. Like, people with darker skin are more prone to be the recipient of these weapons.
That's their diversity
to be on the
program.
business end of these weapons. And so
if you're a brown country, you will receive one of our drones.
you'll be on the business end of that.
Unbelievable. So, I mean, again, I don't know what's coming. We'll see what this private meeting was about. There is, obviously big concerns about this meeting with Xi Jinping and President Putin. But also, what does Putin do in response to these mysterious deaths, to this offensive, to this new round of American and NATO weapons showing up in their country and Germany? They said Germany crossed the red line. So there's a number of key hotbed points that who knows what was being discussed in that CIA meeting. But we will continue to follow this story.